What's up, XPT family? Today we're talking a little bit about the benefits of heat stress or using saunas. Now, for the benefits here, we're going to skip over the relaxation benefits because a lot of us already intuitively know that. We know that we can use saunas as a relaxation tool, and we can go in there post-workout, we can go in there and just kind of relax and unwind, and heat is a great source for relaxation. So we're going to skip over that. We're going to focus more on using the sauna as an actual stressor to create adaptation and how that can improve health, performance, a whole bunch of other things. And that's really what we use it for a lot of XPT. So typically, or the way to think about this as we think about the sauna as a tool to create stress. So when we get into the heat, our core temperature, our skin temperature, our core body temperature starts to elevate. And when it starts to really elevate, the body responds to that as a stressor. The body notices that rise in core temperature and says, if we continue this elevation, we're going to end up dying. So we need to activate a whole bunch of things to try to keep you cool so that you don't end up dying from this kind of stress. And same thing, this is the same stress response that happens with exercise, with fasting, all of those different things. It's a hormetic effect that you may have heard us talk about in the past. So we get into the sauna, the body starts to heat up. That activates a whole bunch of different mechanisms, of different gene programs, different hormones. And as it signals these things, they trigger a cascade of physiological responses in the body. So if you look at some of the benefits of these responses, one of the things that they've activated is heat shock proteins that you may have heard of before. And these are proteins that actually help us to deal with heat, but they're also responsible for a whole bunch of other things in the body, like chaperone functions and cleaning up damaged proteins. So the thought is that the more we can activate these, they're responsible for they're heavily involved in immune function, different types of cellular function. So the thought is that if we activate these heat shock proteins more often, they'll be more capable of performing their other tasks. And where we see some really cool stuff in the research in terms of like specific benefits for different populations, the most exciting research that I've seen in saunas that came out is a really popular study where they looked at about 3,000 people in Finland, and this is a correlational study where they looked back at how frequently these people were sauna bathing, and they looked at their chances of dying from a host of different issues, particularly cardiovascular issues. So sudden cardiac death, coronary heart disease, cardiovascular disease, as well as all-cause mortality, the risk of dying from any premature death cause. And what they found is the more frequently people sauna bathed, the significantly less likely they were to die from all of these cardiovascular diseases, as well as all-cause mortality. And upwards of between 30 to 50% more or less likely, depending on what the disease was and how frequently they sauna bathed. And another really cool thing that they found is they also had a huge decrease in the onset of dementia and Alzheimer's. I believe it was 66% less likely to people who sauna bathed 5 to 7 times per week were 66% less likely to develop dementia and Alzheimer's as people who sauna bathed 1 time a week. And that's not even comparing to people who never did it. That's comparing to people who did it once a week. So that's really, really cool data. And now this is correlational. So that doesn't mean that, they're looking back at people from the 80s and asking them how often they did these things, but they did control for a bunch of other variables like diet and other health, other lifestyle factors. So it's really, really cool data. It is correlational. It doesn't mean particularly that if you just go get into a sauna right now that you're going to cut your chances of dying from cardiovascular disease in half. But it's still really, really cool and really promising. And it shows the potential positive power of the sauna for brain health as well as overall cardiovascular health. We've also seen some studies where they looked at people who use a sauna as a tool, people with high blood pressure or diabetes using the sauna as a tool, actually people who had hypertension using the sauna as a tool to reduce blood pressure. And they saw it was equally as effective as blood pressure medication. So that could potentially be good for people who have high blood pressure to use the sauna as a tool, either together with their medication or hopefully to remove the need for the medication altogether. As well as another study that looked at obese people and using the sauna as a tool and as a way of controlling blood sugar in diabetics and helping to control obesity. And they looked at a bunch of different blood markers and using the heat stress as a tool for that. Another really cool thing for athletes or active populations is the sauna creates intense cardiovascular stress. When I'm in the sauna, like I'm in here right now, it's 215 degrees in here. So I'm actually in here post-workout. So I was already hot, already sweating when I got in the sauna. And my heart rate, according to my heart rate strap, when I use that in here, my heart rate will get upwards. If I'm sitting here, it'll stay somewhere in like the 125 to 135 range. And then sometimes when I'm just doing light passive stretching, it'll go up with 150. So that's the equivalent of what my heart rate looks like when I'm going for a moderate jog. So if we think about the stress that it places on the cardiovascular system, we can get a similar adaptation in the sauna as we can to low intensity cardiovascular activity or moderate intensity activity. Now, the way to look at that is the sauna can be an additional tool. That doesn't mean it should be replacing cardiovascular activity. If the benefits are similar in terms of heart rate, there's still a ton of other benefits from going for a run or exercise as compared to sitting passively in a sauna. But where I think it's really cool is additional stress for people who are already active. So I just worked out, I'm going to sit in here for 20 minutes, and that's an additional 20 minutes I'm putting my cardiovascular system under stress without any additional load on my joints and my body. For people who maybe on another day, if I came in here tomorrow and I can use this as a stressor and I do a couple rounds in the sauna, then that could be an additional stressor on my body. So that's where it's really cool. Or even more interesting is people who have certain issues where they can't exercise regularly, or they can't exercise as intensely or as often as they like to. They can do stuff in the sauna. So let's say you've got disease populations or injured people with injuries. You could potentially use the sauna as an additional stressor to kind of maintain some of the issues that you have. Maybe super obese people who really struggle to exercise can use the sauna as an additional stressor to improve cardiovascular health and function, which is a huge problem for people who are obese because the cardiovascular system, you got a whole bunch of issues with that. So that's a really, really cool use case, as well as activating certain hormones. And this is cool in the acute setting, so you can actually get spikes of testosterone and growth hormone from intense sauna sessions when you're using it as a stressor. They are very acute, so they're short term, but similar to what you see in exercise. When I go lift weights, I get a spike in testosterone and growth hormone from that intense exercise that I just placed on my body. So it's a similar thing happening in the sauna. So again, maybe I have an injury and I can't do an intense exercise, I can't lift weights. I can use the sauna as a stressor, and maybe that potentially boosts my growth hormone, my testosterone a little bit more than it would at rest. And if I use that multiple times throughout the week, then that could stimulate, that could help me to recover quicker from that injury because I'm able to repair. So those are some of the really cool benefits of sauna. If we're looking at it from a longevity, chronic disease perspective, there's a whole bunch of really cool studies out there that show some really interesting stuff about potentially mitigating the risk of a whole bunch of different chronic diseases and illnesses. We talked about mental health, so cognitive function, Alzheimer's, dementia, again, really, really cool. And from a performance perspective, you can use this as an additional stressor. So you can sit in here and you can create cardiovascular stress and heat stress. You can acclimatize your body to dealing with and coping with heat. So you can use that as an additional stressor. But as we wrap this up, the one big caveat to a lot of these things is if we're using the sauna as a stressor, it has to be stressful. So none of these tools, you have to think of the sauna and the ice bath and breath holding and fasting and all of these things as tools. And when we apply the tool a certain way, we can create a certain adaptation. If we use the tool incorrectly or we use the tool a different way, it's going to create a different adaptation. So if we want to use the sauna to create stress, it has to be stressful. If I just come in here at night and I lay down and it's 160 degrees and I lay in here for 15 minutes and I'm kind of hot and sweaty, I may get some benefits from that, but certainly would get benefits of relaxation and potentially helping me recover by getting me into this relaxed state. But that'd be like going for a low intensity walk. There are benefits to a low intensity walk, but if I'm looking to really improve my fitness, I'm going to have to turn that walk into a run. And I'm going to have to push my body to a point where it's forced to adapt to that stress. So we have to use the heat in the same way. So the recommendation that I give to most people is use the sauna as a stay in just past the point of discomfort in order to find where that stress is, because there is no magic temperature or duration that's really going to find that perfect point. For me, this is super stressful right after working out because my body's already hot. So I skip that first 10 minutes of heating up and I'm immediately in the stress right away. So stay in just past the point of discomfort and think about total time of exposure. So if you think about elevating your core body temperature to the point where it is at an elevated state for an extended period of time, it doesn't mean you have to be in the sauna that whole time. So for example, when I do sauna sometimes at night, I do a sauna session by itself, I'll stay in here for 20 to 25 minutes at about 220 degrees. I'll get out, I'll rinse off in the shower, I'll lay in the driveway, I'll cool off a little bit. Sometimes I do an ice bath, but if I'm using it specifically for the sauna, I'll just let my body cool a little bit. So my skin cools, I feel a little cooler. Then when I get back in, I notice that I'm hot right away. So my core body temperature didn't actually lower back down to my baseline. I just cooled my skin off a little bit, which allows me to get another 10 minutes in here. Then maybe I get out, rinse off, come in, do it again. And my total exposure time is in the sauna is about 45 minutes to an hour. And of elevated core body temperature is an hour to an hour and a half, because even the time I'm out there, my core body temperature is still elevated. I'm cooling down compared to when I was in here, but it's still elevated. So you think about that, that would be like if I went for a jog and I ran, but I walked intermittently between that. If I was running hard and I slowed down to a walk for 100 meters or something, or 2 minutes of walking, and I start to bring my heart rate down a little bit, but I don't lay down and completely rest for 10 minutes, my heart rate's going to come down. I'm going to come back to like a low intensity state, but I'm not going to go back to 60 beats per minute like I'm laying in bed. So when I go back to run again, my heart rate's going to spike way back up again. And I'm looking at that total duration of exercise time, even though there was different spikes of intensity. So that's a good way to think about it when you're utilizing the sauna as a stressor. So those are some of the benefits of using the sauna. That's why we're such big fans of the sauna here at XPT. We love the traditional dry saunas like I'm in right now. I broke that down in another video, so I won't go too much into that, so I can keep this a little bit shorter for you guys. But that's some of the reasons that we get into the sauna. We use the heat stress. So hopefully you guys can get access to a sauna somewhere, or if you don't have access to a sauna, you get a lot of similar benefits from exercise. So don't be so worried about the fact that you can't get into a sauna right now because your sauna's not open. Get out there and exercise. Get your body really, really hot and keep it hot for a long period of time. You'll get a lot of the same benefits that you do sitting in the sauna, as well as dozens of other benefits that you get from exercise. So get out there, train hard. We'll see you guys again soon.